Let's talk about EDA Playground. EDA Playground allows us to simulate digital logic using a web browser. You don't type out code, you're not going to learn anything. So the System Verilog spec, unfortunately, is fairly complex, and there are no free simulators that support the entire specification. So how does EDA Playground accomplish this? Well, it does so by essentially giving you access to commercial simulators on the servers. There are some limitations, and we'll get into those in just a bit. So this is what the EDA Playground site looks like. And the first thing we need to do is log in. And we click the login button. And here we are presented with a bunch of options. So let's briefly look at what exactly they mean. In terms of registration options, using a free email account, a Gmail or a Facebook account, will give you access to Aldec. For access to some of the more mainstream simulators from Synopsys, Cadence, or Mentor, that will actually require either your company email or basically any email that's not recognized as a free account. It could even be your own custom domain, for instance. In terms of the silicon-bootcamp examples, we will make sure that all the code actually runs on the Aldec simulator, so nobody should have any issues. Let's go ahead and log in. To run some sample code, let's just pick it up from GitHub. Design code. And paste the design code in the design.sv window here. And pick up the test bench code and paste it in the test bench window. Now, before we can save it, we need to choose the simulator. So we'll just choose Aldec. And we also would like to open the waves window after it runs. So once we do that, we can save it. Then click Run. And after the run, the waveform window actually opens up. As some basic control, you can change the radix. If you want additional signals, you can click on the appropriate instance. But for the most part, this should be pretty self-explanatory. If you do want a new workspace, you can actually create a new workspace just by clicking the EDA Playground icon. You can save it to a specific title if you want. If not, it just chooses a random name. Let's look at the pros and cons of EDA Playground. Obviously, the biggest pro is that you just need an internet browser to get started. Also, you do get access to simulators that typically would be out of reach for an individual. With respect to cons, since it is web-based, EDA Playground has been gaining popularity, and there are periods when the servers actually do go down because they are oversubscribed. For the same reason, again, if the website goes down, obviously you can't access your data. Since it's a shared resource, they do enforce a runtime limit, so your simulations really have to be pretty short. So it's really intended as a sandbox test environment. You're not really expected to run long simulations. And finally, EDA Playground is strictly intended as a simulation environment for the examples that we use at Silicon-bootcamp. The RTL synthesis actually uses a local install, and we'll talk about that in a different video. So a common sense tip is to always save a copy of your code, either on your local machine, which is probably the simplest, or if you're familiar with GitHub, it's easier to share code that way. We do have a link in the description for, I guess, the bare bones Git commands you would need to just get going with the Silicon-bootcamp examples. To go beyond EDA Playground, we do have a local install that uses a Docker image for both simulation and synthesis. The image is quite large, of the order of about 15 gigs, but once you have that, you will no longer be dependent on the EDA Playground site going up or down. And finally, please support this channel by subscribing. I hope you found this video helpful.